Hello and welcome to Green Talks again, to our third episode. And we hope you had a really nice summer and also maybe enjoying the last bits of nice weather outside. I will give a short recap about what we talked during the previous episode. Maria Hellstrand from Walnut Creative Solutions Agency was here with us, and we talked about how design can foster human reconnection and how design can also encourage people to have analog breaks. So if you haven't had the time to watch the video, you can find the link in the description beneath this video, and you can also have a recap on your own. So shifting from our design focus in the previous episodes, now today we're taking a slightly different approach. As some of you might know, COP30 is on the agenda, and it will be happening soon in November, between 10th and the 21st of November. It will take place in Brazil. It is one of the significant events and discussions that will happen and talk about the climate change and problems and how we globally will take actions on different impacts of climate change. So in our episode we will talk a bit about how this reflects on local scales, on smaller scales. To do that, I have two amazing guests here, Manuela from Sustainary and Maria from People of 2050. Today we will talk about how, again, COP30 global scale reflects on local scale, and especially addressing young generation, students, graduates, and how they can raise their voice and get themselves involved in these climate discussions. So welcome to our new episode.
Hello, thank you.
Thank you.
You have developed your own project to involve young generations in these climate discussions, and you will be holding 2 days of workshops involving these people who are interested in discussing climate issues. So can you talk a little bit about your project and how that relates to COP30?
The COPenhagen, that's the name of the project, actually came from an attempt of working on another project about the COP30 that didn't pull through. And it was a project that at the time Sustainary had been commissioned to develop. At the time Maria was with us as one of our project developers. And when that one didn't pull through, she said, but you know what? Why are we working on a project that is not even related to our target audience, which is young people, when in reality COP30 should be about involving young people? And it was her idea, and we said, okay, let's sit down and see what happens here. She came up with the concept, we developed that into something that made sense to our target audience, and then it was ready to go. And then Maria went to People of 2050, and the project went to the fridge for a really long period of time.
That's true.
And then 6 months later, we said, you know, COP30 is approaching. We either do it now or we don't. Then it loses the context. So I contacted her, contacted People of 2050, and decided to do it together. And yeah, I don't know if there's more you want to mention about it.
Yeah, I think just coming back to the idea, at the time I was really thinking about my own experience with climate negotiations and with climate change. And I realized that even though I am Brazilian, I have been working in the Amazon, I did not understand what is the COP30 or what is COP. It's a conference of parties. I think it's very nice to say because the other day I was explaining it and then somebody stopped me and said, okay, but what is COP? It's an annual event that happens every year in a different country where different nations come together to negotiate climate targets, climate ambitions. And I think that sometimes young people and myself, we do not get involved, not because we don't want to, but because we don't understand what happens and what is behind that and how the negotiations work. So that was the starting point. It was my own perspective, but also a wish to be involved in a way, because for me, being there, work there, I'm very proud that this historical moment is happening. It's actually the first COP happening in the Amazon region. And yeah, I was really excited about that. And I wanted to bring this to the local level, also considering that Denmark has a privileged position this year that is hosting the presidents of the European Union. So I think it was a very fruitful moment to align Denmark and Brazil, and we be Brazilians living in Denmark to make this link and being part of this in a way or another.
I think it's also important to highlight here that during the 4 years of the Bolsonaro government, we faced so many setbacks into climate policy and also into climate diplomacy that and now with the new government, there has been an active attempt of bringing those actors back to the table and say, hey, Brazil is still here, we're still doing it. That government does not represent what this country has as an agenda for climate. And I moved to Denmark just when there was a change in governments, and the question I got on and on again was, how could you ever elect this guy? So, well, I didn't elect him, I didn't vote for him, but he was elected, and then he was not. And it is super important, I would say, as a Brazilian, I find it super important to remember that this is also our comeback moment. This is our moment to say, we're still here, we're still doing it, we're still the same country that has held Rio 92, that has been one of the signatories of the Paris Agreement, that has been one of the main voices in the global south for climate change, for the green transition. And we should not be stained by 4 years of a very dark history in what is actually 30 years of a democratic history that has tried its best to dialogue with the climate change, the green transition, and to be on the forefront of it in the global south. Yeah.
So I also quite like the part that you are also personally maybe more engaged what will happen in Brazil.
Yeah, I mean, my background is in social sciences and business, and one thing that you understand is that everything is business. All the decisions, there is a lot of power imbalance in those decisions. So it's very beautiful to see how youth engages here in terms of thinking about the ideology of climate change, but very, very little effort will result into anything at all if you don't understand what are the power balances and business interests related into it. And the idea of this event is also, as Maria said, to highlight, to show light over what is actually a negotiation such as COP. We're not just talking about what is better or not for the country, we're talking about global interests, we're talking about regional interests, we're talking about balances of power. All of it matters, which is why it's also important to remember that it's not just a workshop. The workshop takes place on the first day. On the second day, we actually have a live simulation where people will mimic being on a United Nations, on a COP30. Well, it could also be a United Nations session where you divide them into delegations, and they're also confronted with the conflicts that they have to deal with. So maybe this specific policy is greener, but maybe this green policy here will cost the job of a lot of poor people. How do you leverage those dichotomies? What are you defending there? It's never so simple. From the outside, if you just follow the news, it looks like it's a very simple, no-brainer choice, and often it is not. Every time you choose something, you renounce to something else, and you need to think about who are the actors involved in each side, and what do you do to balance those? And coming from a developing country, one thing I heard, especially in the global north, is that more often than not, the North always has amazing solutions for the problems of the South that they don't understand.
Yeah.
And I feel that coming from the global South, I also have this role as some kind of cultural ambassador into showing, hey, actually, I'm very happy that you're so passionate about it, but do you really know all the pieces of this puzzle? Yeah. Because a lot of your solutions, they're not taking into account so many stakeholders and smallholders in the situation that will be impacted no matter what. So how do you go about designing that? I feel like coming from Brazil, we have this responsibility as Brazilians to say, okay, I love that you're all very interested in the topic, but can you actually look at all the details that you're missing? Yeah. Because otherwise, no solution will ever really be effective, especially not when it comes to the Amazon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was also seeing in the news, because recently we received a lot of backlash questioning if Belém, the city that is hosting the COP, if we were actually prepared to receive such a high level conference. And I saw the CEO of the COP actually saying that it is important that these events happen in a mid-sized developing city for people to also experience what we live. Yes, maybe we don't have enough infrastructure, maybe we have more violence and more challenges that a global developed city would not have, but that is also important for people to experience and be part of the discussion. And one of the other things we are having this year is the inclusion of civil society. We actually have indigenous people and other members of African women, agriculture as part of the presidency of the COP, because we also want to highlight the role of civil society. And in our simulation, we also want to discuss that. When the negotiations are happening, of course, each country has its agenda, and that's the challenges that we're gonna present to the participants, and they have to balance this. But we also want to see what happens when civil society gets involved, how can civil society get involved, and also the challenging moment we are living in the world right now, because we are living in a place where the multilateralism is giving place to nationalism and protective national policies. But we actually need to work together as the whole planet to solve these issues and to tackle this. So this is the purpose of our event, and I'm really excited to see the fruits and see if maybe this is something that we can transform into a yearly event and have more and more young people aware, understand, and maybe become more active.
Yes, on a side note, Sustainary is an organization that works with young people developing projects for young people. So a lot of what we do is based in their own demands. Most of our members are still university students aged below 30. And a topic that has been on and on throughout the year, and it's been now for a couple of years, is how detached young people feel from the places of power, or from where decisions are made. And it is in that regard as well that we have other initiatives that focus a lot on empowering young people to feel like they can confidently have an opinion about things. Especially in Denmark, people come from a culture where they feel that if you're not an expert, then maybe you should not voice your opinion. However, I would say that as a young person, it is your civil duty to voice your opinion, even if you're wrong, but you still need to do it, because that's what being a young person is about being bold enough to say things even when you're not sure. But that's also how you push for change. So this is the first event. Hopefully there will be more collaborations and there will be more ideas such as that. Not just focusing in COP, but also in other big decisions. Right now we have a project related to the local elections. Next year we have national elections in Denmark. And all those events, they create possibilities and opportunities to engage young people into the civil life, into becoming political agents. And it's very important to remember, political agents doesn't mean necessarily being a political member or being enrolled in a political party. Everything we do is politics. Having an opinion and standing your ground onto something, that is politics. And why are we so afraid of being political? So hopefully this event will launch a movement of other events that we would also love to see from other partners and other organizations out there, to come to turn to young people and say, come on, you don't need to watch it from your computer. It's not just about giving likes, it's about going to the streets, it's about voicing your concerns, it's about taking ownership of it as well.
Yeah,
I quite like the part when you mentioned people outside of Brazil trying to obviously contribute to climate discussions, but as an outsider it might also be harder for them to know the culture and what is actually happening there. So in a way, I think we also need to get out of this colonial mindset that still exists in basically everywhere. It might not be intentionally, but
yeah,
beneath it kind of stays there as how we perceive and take actions on things. So I quite like that you also brought that into discussion.
Yeah. And I think when one of the most powerful tools that you have is putting yourself in other people's shoes. So I do see the value of a simulation and people trying different agendas and different backgrounds and empowering this agenda as a way to also reflect on your privileges, on your strengths and your weaknesses. So I do believe a lot in this delegation and simulation and understanding, and maybe in the future also wanting to break the bubble and see it for yourself, different realities.
Sometimes it's also very hard to dialogue with people who have been brought up into this idea of this is the developed world, this is the developing world, we are privileged and therefore we want to help those in need. However, what makes us think that we know what kind of help they need? What makes us think that whatever attempt they have to solve their own problems is not dignified enough? And maybe they know what they need and maybe they have their own solutions better than we do. I would say Danes in general tend to be very open-minded. I have faced very few situations in Denmark where people were not open to listen and to be educated about it and to learn more about it. It's also one of the things I love about Denmark. Nobody assumes they know anything.
Back to your project. It's also, I think, quite significant that you specifically address to young people, because basically younger generations are the ones that will have the impact of climate change more than the older generation. So in that sense, I think that's also important. Which target group you chose?
The target group we work with the most is always university students. First of all, because they are the ones who have more independence over their own schedules, because they will be dealing with a lot of related topics in their own studies, and probably they have already been participating in some kind of, at least online association or discussion groups, so they're the ones who are more engaged. At Sustainary, we do have other projects aimed at school students, but then they would have to be in a different node. It's also important to remember that we are trying to be as inclusive as possible, thereby the language of the event is English, and the age group where you're going to find more internationals here is exchange students, universities, master students. So we can say between 20 and 30 is probably the target audience.
For the audience who will be watching this video, can people still sign up for the event?
For sure.
What are the deadlines?
Yes, people can sign up to November 1st.
Okay.
Yes. And then we have to close down because we need to know how many people we're ordering food for.
Yeah, but we are also doing a more active effort in the next month to properly launch the project. This is the first active promotion that we're doing, and we're very thankful for you having us. But we will be having the link available on Sustainary website and also on our social medias to be able to reach as much people interested in the event. Also, it's quite nice to point out that this is a 2-day event, so our idea is that people commit to both days, but if somebody is more interested or not available and can only come one of the days, so they can come for the workshops, the first part that is a more educative, conventional format and informative, you can come on the first day. And if you can only be available for the second day and the simulation, we will also have support material that will guide you and your role. So they are together, but they are also separate, so we can maximize people availability to be there at the event, because we really want people to come.
When you sign up for both events, but it's okay if you can only attend to one of the events. I would say that each of the days that you attend, you're going to have a very different experience and very different gains. So even if you can only attend one of the days, you should still come.
Yeah.
And these 2-day events will happen on
November 6th and 7th at Studenterhuset in the city center at Købmagergade 52. They're going to be happening upstairs.
We will also share the information beneath the video, so you can also have an easy access if you're interested.
Perfect.
Can you maybe give a bit more information about specifics of each day again? So what is happening on the first day, what is happening on the second day, and also what do you expect to have as an outcome of these 2 days as organizations?
The first day is, as Maria said, is an information day, so we're going to have different workshops. And then we're going to also have speakers. We are now in the process of contacting the Brazilian embassy and seeing if there could be someone who would be interested in coming and talking about Brazil's commitment with hosting the COP and what we want, and maybe making an open session for questions. Since we are on the spotlight, so we might as well take control over the narrative instead of running away from that. Then we're going to have a workshop on the geopolitics of green transition, which in my opinion, it's perhaps the most important aspect of all, because all the other things that will follow are only possible if you understand that green transition is geopolitical. It's not just environmental. It is fundamentally a business political decision. And then we're going to have some information about all the acronyms and who are the main actors, a little bit of context, because if you are a student of international relations, you know all those acronyms by heart. But if you are not, then you probably are still asking yourself what does COP stand for. And then you have IPCC, and then you have another a big number of acronyms that are part of it that you don't know what they mean. So let's explain what they mean, what they stand for, and who are those guys, why they're relevant, and maybe in the simulation you will come across them or not. And then maybe Maria is in a better position to explain the second day.
Yes, so the second day is the simulation per se. People will be divided in different delegations and will have their agendas to negotiate. And we will also try to mimic this power imbalance among the participants. And the idea is that we simulate what would happen in the real world. So we might have some sort of crisis happening or some involvement of civil society. And by the end of that day, we will have a theoretical agreement. I call it the Amazonian Agreement, where the participants will have to sign, and then whatever we decide, but we will also have some moment of reflection and understanding how was this experience, what did they feel? Did they feel powerless? Did they feel engaged? What were the feelings that this dynamic brought up? So we really want to have some sort of document and mimic what would happen in the real world.
I think what we want the outcome of the event to be is that people leave that event not just more informed so they can better understand the news that they read, but also feeling like they're actually capable of mobilizing way more forces than they think they are. They have way more power and way more voice, and maybe they will not be doing anything about the COP, but maybe they will feel more empowered to knock their neighbors' doors and say, hey, by the way, I had a better idea on how we can organize our trash collection. Can we do it together? More open and more empowered to actually take action, let's say.
I also see this as a problem in young generation, that people tend to feel, what can I do as an individual?
Yeah.
So in that sense, they can also experience when individuals come together and have a meaningful discussion, they can actually come up with something. Doesn't matter the scale, it can be small, but it can at the end also become something bigger.
Oh, 100%, 100%. If I go too much on that topic, I will end up recording another podcast. But a few years ago, I was actually very interested and did a lot of research on the topic of cyber activism. And I'm not going to bash Gen Z. I have high respect for Gen Z. I'm a millennial myself, but I would say that because that actually affects millennials as well. So millennials and Gen Z, they lost the contact with the voices of the streets. We are the generations that have become very comfortable having online activism. We write posts, we write angry comments, we sign petitions, but we do very little outside of home, outside the online spectrum, because we're also very non-confrontationals. We are generations that are not ready to look somebody in the face and say, no, you're wrong. Maybe there are good and positive aspects about it. I feel like Gen Z is actually a little bit better than millennials at doing it, but they're also more on the side of disappearing rather than confronting, but at least they do something. I feel like millennials swallow a lot. But the point is, we live in a time where people overestimate their capacity of mobilizing forces from the comfort of their home in front of their computer or their cell phones or social media. the streets are empty. Networks are full, but the streets are empty. And it is time to bring people back to the streets. It's time to bring youth back to the streets.
So in that sense, this 2 days of events will also provide them an opportunity to actually go out from their home and then be involved personally, engage with other people in person.
And feel the synergy.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and
have
then
a taste of what it's like to mobilize powers in real life.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Have this feeling of, okay, we can actually do something if we go out.
Yeah, and I think is also an opportunity to understand, because the first step to take action is actually understanding what is out there. Because when you understand the reality, maybe you can propose some solutions. I do feel that people stop in not understanding each other, not understanding the climate solutions, the policies. One thing that is also a goal of this COP is to show to the general population the innovations that are already happening in the world because of these negotiations. So for example, now we have a lot of electric cars, and we used to not have that. So by showcasing and by showing that this is closer and actually has an impact in your everyday, in how you consume things and how you live your life, you can bring like more simplicity, and you can bring people closer to these facts. And I think that's very important in activism, is understanding your reality, forming your opinion about it, and then you do something to change. Because that's at least how I see this whole process. And I think very often than not, we just stop in the first step.
Well, there is such thing as informed action, right? You can't really take action if you're not properly informed.
Yeah.
And then again, it goes back to when you were only acting on the cyberspace, you were overwhelmed with an unsurmountable amount of information from every side. And how do you filter through all of it? What is it real? What is not? What is relevant? What is not? When you are on the streets, hands-on into something, the only information you're going to get access to is the one that is pertinent to what you're doing. So then it's much easier to also navigate through that and qualify that information.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think in this context, I also find the project quite valuable. If people are also being hesitant about putting themselves out there, the events also provide them a safer place, we can say, and also in a facilitated environment that they can also get guidance and hear opinions, get informed. So in that sense, I think the project you came up with has another value, we can say.
No, yeah, for sure. And it's also important to say that this is, although to my knowledge, that's the only activity happening in Copenhagen related to the COP, that is far from being the only activity of the kind involving youth. I actually came across one of the volunteers at Baxtery. Baxtery is also a member of the project, who attended a conference in Stockholm where a delegation of young people wrote what they expect the outcome of the COP to be, and there will be delegates that will be going to Brazil to deliver that. And this person will be actually participating in the end of the event, explaining a little bit of it, and also saying, if you really want to take it further than those 2 days, there is more you can do. There are places where you can go. There are organizations across Europe that you can join that will actually be hands-on on the event day in Brazil. So yeah, I think it's also about showing people that there are different ways that they can engage.
I guess we can count this as a first step, and then hopefully it will also evolve into something bigger, and you can also reach out to more people.
I would say this is a pilot where we're seeing, what we are trying to see is this the right way to engage young people and bring them back to the streets and let them know that their voices count, matter, and that they make a difference? We'll see. Perhaps we will be proven wrong, but I have a hunch that we will not.
We hope.
Well, just hearing more information about the project, I'm also excited myself also to
You
hear
should
the
sign up for the
outcomes.
event.
Yes.
So yeah, I would also be, I think, in touch to hear the outcomes and how 2 days will be going for you and also for the participants. I'm also very glad that you joined the talk today, and we have the privilege to have from first person information about both COP30 and COPenhagen.
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 Yes.
So thank you very much for joining this talk and sharing more information about Copenhagen. And I will repeat it again. You can find the relevant information and links beneath the video, so you can have an easy access to also participate in these events in the upcoming month.
And keep an eye on also People of 2050 social media and Sustainary. We're always doing events targeting young people and engaging them in different topics. So we would love to see you there.
Once again, thank you very much for joining us today, and I hope it will be a great 2 days of events, both for you and for the participants.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I hope you also enjoyed the episode as I did here, hosting it, and hopefully see you in the next episodes of Green Talks.